Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. Our very special guest, she's been a Skype video supporter for many months now. It's always great to talk with her. The Natural Progressive is here. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Excellent. How is your show going?
Good. First live interview, Josh Cameron. You should take a peek. He has a big announcement that he chose my program to make with our voice. So I hope people tune in because it was a great conversation.
That's excellent. Yeah, I've interviewed Josh Cameron a couple of times about Our Voice and about his court case when they tried to silence him, which was,
Mm.
I mean, he went through some crazy stuff. And of course, it's great. You've been doing your own show, The Natural Progressive. So everybody
Yeah,
check that out.
we started out with that, just so you know, of his court case, his activism and what happened there. That's how we started, and then we got into our voice. So yeah, check it out.
Excellent. So the topic you really want to cover is, are we the people of the apocalypse, basically? And
Nothing too deep, nothing deep at all.
just a kind of a light. We'll just sort of like trading recipes.
Mhm.
Because it's the thing we talked about last month, and it is we're facing like climate collapse, and I don't think it's been sort of gradual, but a lot of indications, and you've sent some articles for us to go over, is that it is becoming the term you want to start trying to get out there as abrupt climate change, and we're starting to see it. I mean, I'm even seeing it here just in. So I've lived in Southern California for 20 years, and, our winters are never that bad, right? It's usually
Mild, temperate.
we get a couple rainstorms, and it'll get in the 50s, and we'll have some nights in the 40s, and it'll rain, and then it'll go back to 60s, 65, 70 degrees during the day, and 55 at night, and we're all fine. It has been consistently a lot colder, where the temperatures are, this is the highest heating bill I've ever had.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've heard about the cold temperatures hitting that way,
Yeah.
for sure.
And
Yeah, it's crazy.
the homes are not built for it.
Nope.
That's the thing. When I lived in the Midwest, everything's double pane glass and insulation and all that stuff. Southern California is not designed for that. So it's really, and usually these storms come in for a week or two, and it's cold and rainy on and off, and then they finally go away and it's fine. But that's what we're seeing with climate change. Is it's gonna make any weather is gonna get more severe. So we're gonna have more of these polar vortexes, and we're gonna have hotter, drier summers. If there's flooding, it's going to be more severe, and that's what we're noticing. So what are you noticing, and specifically what kind of do you want to talk about on this?
Well, I'm noticing more and more unprecedented activity, whether it be weather or mass die-offs of a species in a locality. Either there's extreme cold, or there's an extreme heat, or there's an extreme drought, or there's an extreme rain, and then there's the flooding and mudslides and all that are killing populations. If you look at Australia, that's a perfect example. It's their summer right now, so they have there was hundreds and thousands of cattle that were just killed after flooding in Australia after extreme drought. Then they got extreme rain that they've never seen before, and the footage of it is just incredible to see. Just tons of cows, just bodies piled up on top of each other, and then of course the bats, the flying foxes that just drop from the trees. They're finally talking about the koala bears are really, I mean, they've already were endangered, but now they're seriously in danger of extinction because of the extreme temperatures in Australia. And there's a fish, a cod variety in the lake in Australia that was already endangered. And there's footage of that where they're all just dead because of algae blooms. And algae blooms are something that we see here in our lakes. And they don't make a big fuss over it. They just say, oh, this is, it's an algae bloom, stay away from the water. But it is really detrimental to the fish life. And these are the resources that we depend on to live. The current lifestyle that Americans and everyone in the world, these are our resources that we utilize. And I don't think that our civilization is capable of going into the type of life that they need to lead in order to be sustainable, especially with the population growth. We're not going to have enough water. We're definitely not going to have enough food, especially with the weather, the climate changes, and where you could grow one crop before, you won't be able to grow it there in the future because of the extreme temperature changes, the extreme climate changes.
Yeah, I think there's so many. I just did a video on. There's all these little minor things people are seeing in their communities, but they speak to a much larger issue, which is like a bunch of polar bears invaded this little island, this little Russian island, because they have their food source. The ice is where the seals live, and the ice is melted, so the seals aren't there, so the polar bears can't get food, so they've invaded this town, and they're at the dump, and they're breaking into people's homes looking for food because they have no food source.
Yeah, also the killer whales have moved further up north, so they're disrupting that food supply for the polar bears as well. I mean, one thing links to another thing, and that's the one article, the Co-Extinction article.
All right, let me bring it up.
I would really like you, either you or I could read it, the first, the abstract, just the summary kind of it.
Let me do a screen share. Back to the meeting. All right, how do I do the screen? Oh, there. How do I do the screen? Okay. What did I do?
You got it. It's there.
Oh, it's there. You can see it. Okay.
I can see it. Yeah.
So let's read this. This is Co-Extinctions Annihilate Planetary Life During Extreme Environmental Change. And this is an article that was a scientific report by Giovanni Strona and Corey J.A. Bradshaw. And this is in the Scientific Reports. And basically, they say climate change and human activity are dooming species at an unprecedented rate via a plethora of direct and indirect, often synergetic mechanisms. Among these, primary extinctions driven by environmental change could be just the tip of an enormous extinction iceberg, as our understanding of the importance of ecological interactions in shaping ecosystem identity advances. It has become clearer how the disappearance of consumers following the depletion of their resources, a process known as co-extinction, is more likely the major driver of biodiversity loss. I mean, and I'll put all these links in the show notes to people that are watching. They're calling this we're in the midst of a sixth mass extinction. It is fitting to quantify the relative contribution of different mechanisms driving catastrophic biodiversity loss. Drivers directly related to anthropogenic modifications of the biosphere are apparent as well and well described: habitat destruction, overexploitation, and biotic invasion. Similarly, the effect of environmental change, temperature rise, increased droughts, oceanification, etc., can be easily interpreted. And this is what you're talking about with the whale. When the environmental conditions of a certain locality become incompatible with the tolerance limits of inhabiting species, in many cases, they will go locally extinct. Mm-hmm. Just like the fish go extinct in a broken thermostat. So it's like...
And it starts out locally, and then it just expands from there. there will be certain populations in certain areas that are thriving, or populations that move to a different area and thrive for a while, but then they upset the ecosystem in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a domino effect, and it's happening, and it's happening everywhere. There'll be this story on this channel about this, this problem with this, like the sunflower starfish that is gone, and then the sea urchins that it fed on go crazy and eat the entire kelp forest, and so you lose that, and that's where fish spawn, and the kelp also provides oxygen and turns carbon into oxygen. And then there's the whales, which was a huge eye opener. There's been mass strandings of whales all over in Ireland, in New Zealand. There was 2 in one day in Boston, which is unheard of. Mm-hmm. Just like 200 at a time, 140, like all these whale strandings are happening. And what you see them actually, the ones that show up dead on shore or almost dead on shore, is just a small percentage of what's actually happening in the ocean. So that's just a signal that the ocean is dying. And the whales, especially the sperm whale, which that article was about, that I also put on there, it talks about how important the sperm whale is to the deep water life, and also to pull carbon out of the atmosphere and produce oxygen because of their poop. Because just them alone. Can you go to that one, the whales? Why whales are important?
Okay.
And you have to scroll down just a little bit to get to the point of it. I don't want to go through the whole article.
Yeah, 4 reasons why whales are fundamentally important, and I'll share that screen.
But the whales are dying in unprecedented numbers. They're just washing up on shores everywhere.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. Are you seeing it?
Yeah.
So I'll read this, the 4 reasons why whales are important to our environment. Whales play an important role in stabilizing the aquatic food chain and reproduction of other species. As more whales are killed, the food distribution in the ocean becomes destabilized and causes changes in the food supply of many other kinds of marine life. Scientific studies of the I don't know how to pronounce that.
Cetacean
species, whales, dolphins, and porpoises has led to a lot of discoveries and advancements regarding ecolocation, aquatic environments, marine life, biology, and marine mammal intelligence, and other important oceanic topics. Whale poop plays a large role in stabilizing the offset of carbon in the atmosphere, providing a healthier environment for both land and aquatic life forms. Whale watching and various other spectating activities have brought in billions of dollars, helping stimulate economic growth in various cities, states, and countries. So it says that they have an important role in maintaining our ecosystem by maintaining a stable food chain and feeding other marine mammals that help provide a cleaner atmosphere, as well as helping growing economies increase their awareness and profitability through tourism. I mean, this is like, it's more more evidence of 2 things, obviously. One, which is how delicate our ecosystem is and how we need all of these that we weren't even aware of unless you're like a scientist, a marine biologist or whatever. And more importantly, the damaging of it, how detrimental it is to our own survival. And planet Earth is going to be here regardless. Whether we make it or not. And, if we as a species can't evolve enough to save our own environment,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, our whole civilization has become so based on consumerism and so displaced from nature, not connected with nature anymore. There's no empathy anymore, not only for other humans, but for the planet and the other species. So they feel like they're above it all and don't feel the need, that they don't think that that one species is attached to another, but I learned that in third grade science. And I still remember my teacher in third grade science, my science teacher, and when he explained how the ecosystem works and how one thing depends on another, and every species is dependent on every other species to a certain extent, and the more species we lose, the harder it is for us to survive. And it is really hard for me to wrap my head around why people don't understand this concept. We are animals. People don't want to think that we're animals. They want to think we're special, but we're animals. We require resources to live: water, air, food. We require those things. And if we are over consuming those things, if we're living a lifestyle that is just destroying all those resources, it is so unsustainable, and we're all going to die. And it's likely unchangeable at this point, especially with the overpopulation. Our population has doubled since 1965, and that rate will only get quicker and quicker. So until we start running out of resources, and then of course it's going to turn the other way. But it's just sad. And overpopulation seems to be a very touchy subject. It really is. It's super touchy. And being just a realist and a thoughtful person, I've always been concerned about overpopulation since I was a child. I've always worried about it.
Hey,
it's just
unsustainable. Yeah. Frozen. Oh, there it is.
Oh, did it freeze? Sorry.
Freeze. I could hear you, but it just froze for that. But that's
okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You bring up a valid point. There's so many issues here, and overpopulation is a very touchy subject, because it's like telling people they can't have kids or procreate or something like that. That's very. There's no other way to say it than it's a touchy subject.
It's a super touchy subject, and to me, I don't understand why. Because if you love kids, if you love the human population, you wouldn't want to see them suffer. So why would you want to bring more people onto the planet that are just going to end up suffering through, what eventually is going to be wars over resources, and it's not going to happen like overnight. It will in some places when they have a devastating weather event, but in most cases it will happen slowly, and we'll be losing our food supply and our clean water supply. And that's already happening. It's already happening. There's example after example of water being poisoned. And in the meantime, a lot of our clean water sources are diminishing. Like the glaciers that are melting that supply clean water, they're melting right now. And so
there's also a concern of the methane gas that is trapped in the polar ice caps when that gets released. And if it gets released too abruptly, which is what is happening, because it's melting at a faster rate than scientists have even thought, that could be they're calling that potentially a mass extinction event.
And then the diseases and viruses that we're not don't have any immunity to, that are also being released from that permafrost. There's that too. There are just so many cannons pointed straight at us, and they'll only talk about this one over here and that one over there, and they're not putting them all together. There's also all the nuclear power plants that when they get flooded, it's going to be Fukushima everywhere. There's like 400 and something nuclear power plants that take years to shut down properly. And they haven't even started, except for, I guess there's one in California they started to shut down. And you would know about that. Yeah. So they're not, they should be taking these precautions right now. But then at the same time, you have those nuclear power plants and you don't have anything else to replace them, like wind and solar. So what's going to happen when you have the next big event, cold or heat, where you can't get air conditioning or heat because the power grid can't handle it? I mean, there's so many contributing factors that are just going to make life unlivable. And if you're just plugging your ears to this, la, 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 I mean, it's going to be a rude awakening when that happens to you.
Yeah, I think it's the thing we talked about in the last one of getting involved in the Extinction Rebellion, and really not There needs to just be mass shutdowns. I don't know what else to do, because it's sort of, I wish I was a billionaire to where I could just really try to affect some type of change. But I don't know. What would you suggest people do?
Push the governments, all governments, to make it a national emergency, not the freaking wall, but climate is a national emergency, and we need to get every single scientist, and I said this before, I know, but every single scientist, every single military, take our huge giant military budget and put it towards that. Yeah. Towards figuring this out, and then we gotta figure out how to raise our own food and take down the mega agriculture of the factory farming and all that. That's not helping us. If you have your food supplies concentrated too much, one devastating event can destroy that food supply, and that's where we're at right now. Not only with factory farming, with factory farming, but it's soybeans, it's wheat, it's rice, it's corn, it's all that. It's so condensed into one crop production that we don't have the diversity we need spread throughout the country. So once you wipe out that supply, it wipes out the supply for not only that locale, but everywhere. And that's something people need to start considering and start. It's going to be really hard. There's not enough land. I know people think there's enough land to support the population we have right now and have enough resources, but there really isn't, because every time you move into a new piece of land, you're taking that ecosystem away that we depend on, and it's not a conspiracy theory to say that there is too much population to the growth. We can't handle the growth, especially with the way we live. And even if we were to spread everybody out and do more community gardens and grow food more locally, all the people in New York City, all the people in LA, how are they gonna do that? They don't have the land to do it. They don't have the water supplies to do it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I wanted to get your opinion. And am I up in the night? Am I crazy? Is this conspiratorial to think that there's a problem going on right now?
Well, it's not it's not a conspiratorial, and it's not. You're not crazy. This is real. The data is very real. And when you have the oil companies that have hundreds of billions of dollars, if not more, they can, as they have done for the last 4 to 5 decades, they're aware of the research that climate is collapsing, and they're aware of the oil and the internal combustion engine, what it has done to the environment, and they've hidden the research. Then they've spent a lot of money to fight it. So it's really, that's not even a conspiracy. That's
I know. Sorry, I'm a little touchy about it, because when I was on Uphill Media, John told me that it was a conspiracy theory. So,
well, I mean, that's like climate change is happening, and it doesn't care if you believe in it.
Well, no, it wasn't climate change. He's all for, he understands climate change, but like the people's, like the fact that we're at a tipping point with people, like the overpopulation is an issue, that we have unlimited resources for however many people come here. That's the part that I was called a conspiracy theorist for.
Well, let me put it to you this way. We don't have enough resources for everybody the way we are currently doing it.
Yeah.
If we were to convert to a completely agrarian society and one with nature, and got rid of fossil fuels and single-use plastics and all that stuff, yeah, potentially we could.
Could we do it with double the population we have now?
No way. There's no way. I mean, like, that's the thing people don't seem to understand. And I think what happens is, in America and in the West, we haven't seen it. There are already millions of climate refugees that have happened. Syria is one of the examples. I mean, in a lot of third world countries that don't have the infrastructure, stuff.
And a lot of the migrants are coming because of crop failures. Yeah. And people are crying and whining about people, coming to seek refugee status in the U.S., but it's climate change, and it's our wars over oil. It's so many things that we're causing, and the biggest contributors to the climate change are not the third world countries. They're actually us, the United States and Europe and all that, because we are the consumers, and the consumers are the ones that cause the most pollution and the most problems, and waste resources. So until people come to that conclusion, and I think religion has a big part of it, the denial process, because I don't know, they're taught that. I know I bring this up a lot. I'm sorry. It's just where I'm at in Utah, and where I hear that everything is put here for our use and and abuse. I guess I don't know that. I just don't understand. I'd rather think like the Iroquois Indians, where they think 7 generations out and taking care of the planet and the environment for 7 generations.
7 generations.
Yeah.
I think in this terms of this just sort of like greedy consumerism, and capitalism is obviously the biggest culprit. Capitalism is very cruel and short term, and big corporations are only literally thinking about the stock profit of the next quarter. And so I think to get here as we try to find solutions. For me, one of the things I talk a lot about on this show is take charge in your own life. Petition the lawmakers for environmentally sustainable legislation in your local governments, and also do it yourself. I mean, I wish I had a home with a backyard. I'd start growing my own food, and I'd put wind and solar on that's what I would do, because I live in a major city, and when stuff starts, there's going to be food shortages and water shortage. That's going to happen, and then what do we do?
I know. And it's going to happen on the coastlines first, more than likely. So yeah, you're in danger.
Yep.
When your place floods, come see me. Yep.
I'm pretty far above ground, so I'm okay in that regard, and I'm up on a hill.
Yeah, ocean light. Oh, yeah, the ocean rising is the least of our concerns at the moment. That's going to take a little while. Although they never know, because they're discovering cavities in the ice that they didn't know, where it's undermining instead of melting from the top. They've only focused on the top, and now they're finding cavities underneath, and they don't know how many are there. So that's another scary thing. The ice could be melting. Once the ice melts, it's just a ticking time bomb where it changes everything. The pole is already changing. Where the coldest area is, it's moving, and the polar vortex is.
I mean, Phoenix, had severe heat last summer, and what are they going to do? You can't just put in more air conditioners or whatever.
No, the power grid can't handle that. Yeah. The power grid can't handle the extreme cold, if it happens more and more, which it will, it's just the power grids can't handle it anywhere. In Australia, they're not prepared for the kind of heat that they're getting, even though they're a regularly hot country anyway. And then Tasmania, did you hear about Tasmania's on fire? Like it's a tropical rainforest, and it never lights on fire, but it's so hot that the precipitation is evaporating before it hits the ground, but there's still lightning, so it's lighting the forest on fire. So you just see these things happening all over. It's unsustainable. There's something. It's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse, and everybody is going about their daily business every single day like nothing is happening.
Yeah. And then there's some distraction about this, that, or the other thing on the news that everyone gets all bent out of shape about, and what they should be talking about is this. I mean, you said it in the last interview, is that we need to be reacting as though there's a meteor heading for our planet. It's going to hit us in 5 to 10 years, and it's going to end life on planet Earth if we don't do something about it. So it's like we need to be all working together in those regards, but it's hard when the greed and the corruption, and you have people who I think are just born without. I mean, I was watching this documentary on sociopaths or psychopaths, and they've done MRIs and studies, and they have less brain matter in the frontal lobe where empathy is. And I just think we just have there's all these John Boltons and all these Trump and all these other people, they're psychopaths, and they just don't have empathy, and they don't care. and they don't understand that everything is connected. The environment is collapsing, and the environment when as it is collapsing, and if we don't have breathable air and drinkable water, I mean, it's over. And it does that air, when it goes away and the oceans rise and the crops die, they're not going to care whether you voted for Trump or Hillary, or you watch Fox or MSNBC. It's not going to care.
Right. And neither side is taking it. I mean, AOC is doing a great job, pushing the Green New Deal, but even that's not enough. It's just not enough. We need drastic action right now. But the problem is there is no empathy. That was the other article I had, the people of the apocalypse. We are the people of the apocalypse, that one. And it talks just about that, the empathy, the lack of empathy. And that's why no one is doing anything about it. They only think about themselves. We're a narcissistic society. We're raised that way.
Has joined forces as a cultural consensus. Guilt has lost its power. It's the climate of apathy. I mean, yeah.
That's a great paper. I really encourage people to listen or to read it, because it's really eye-opening and it rings true. If it doesn't ring true to you, then there's something wrong with you. There just is.
Well, we need to have everybody screaming for a Green New Deal, and we need to. There's no anti-war movement.
We need anti-war,
because the military, the United States military, is the number one polluter of the earth.
Right.
And all of our bombs and the making of the bombs and the dropping them and all of that stuff. And it's just and our military reach could be part of a global Green New Deal that saves the planet.
We could use all that military budget, no wall, but instead, and no wars over oil, no wars for regime change, so we can get their minerals or oil and all that. Instead of doing that, we should be working on this climate issue and fixing things. And on top of that, we have to change the way we live. We can't be a consumer-based society and be sustainable. We have to just change everything about the way we live. And that's going to be really hard for some people who like to take a shower every day, who like to wash their clothes every, one time wash the clothes, whether they're dirty or not. And that sounds really crazy, to live like that, where you actually wear your clothes more than once before you wash them, or, go a day without a shower. But I was raised in the spitz bath thing. My mom was, came from the 50s, and you just conserved water, you conserved electricity, you conserved everything, and yeah, I'm sounding like a filthy hippie, but maybe I am. I don't know. I don't care.
The thing that gives me hope is that I've seen efforts that have worked. I mean, in 4 years ago, California was in the middle of a really bad drought. And so Governor Jerry Brown said, that's it, we've got to reduce our consumption. And he got the state in a matter of months to reduce its water consumption by 20-some%, which was massive. One of the things they pushed was the 5-minute shower. And they have these little I have a little timer in a little hourglass thing. And I take 5-minute showers, and there's a whole campaign of not washing your car and converting your lawn, like all the lawns in Arizona. Nobody has grass. Very few people, rather, in Arizona have grass lawns. And
right.
We're doing all that stuff. And in a matter of months, the state of California cut its water consumption by 20% just from that.
That's awesome. You go to Utah and you tell them to cut their water, and they use more.
Yeah.
Oh, we better use it while we have it. This state is so frustrating. I don't know how to deal with the people here. They're like, well, I'm going to drive my big truck, and I'll have the biggest, beefiest diesel I can drive. And
yeah, I don't know. Maybe maybe the human race just hasn't figured it out, and it's time for us to go.
Yeah, well, that would be sad, but I hope at least the animals get to survive. I doubt they will. I think we'll kill them off, and yeah, we already are. All the whales are dying. All the fish are dying. What are we going to do when we don't have those resources? And then there's going to be water over what few resources, wars over the water and the food sources that are left. That's going to be happening.
It's already happening. All that stuff is already happening. So,
Yeah, it is. But it's going to get 10 times worse. It's going to start touching us.
That's the thing. It hasn't affected America, really. It has in parts of it in the regions that have gotten the heavy hurricanes.
Yeah.
They've seen that. There has been climate refugees in this country who have had to move. Katrina, all that stuff. People have had to move. It has happened. It is happening. But Americans don't like to get off the couch unless their cable gets shut off. So I don't know. It's going to happen here, and Americans are going to have to wake up to it one way or another, whether regardless of whatever kind of car or truck they drive. It's going to happen. So hopefully that'll be enough of a wake-up call that everybody rallies, and hopefully we can get a real progressive in the White House. And that's why
I hope we have that much time.
Yeah, so do I. It might not. It might be too late, but I don't know. I hope we can, because I'd like to see society survive. I haven't.
I would too.
Life.
I would love it. I mean, there's a lot of geoengineering they're looking at doing, but they'd be all experimental and they'd be a Hail Mary at this point. They don't know what the actual effects would be. So
that's the thing. If we put all of the money and research behind it, we could come up with, who knows what we could come up with. That's the one thing that gives me hope, is it's like we haven't put every ounce of resources behind it. Time, effort, schools, all of it. If we focused everything on that, who knows? Because there's technology that was created to, like this, the way we're talking to each other, this was like science fiction when I was a kid. So,
yeah.
YouTube didn't exist 10, 12 years ago. It didn't even exist. And now here we are. So there's always something that we haven't even thought of, and it's potentially out there. We just got to put all the resources behind it, and not for a wall, and not for a bullshit coup in Venezuela so we can get their oil. It's not. It's none of that. None of the 8 wars that we're in. It's not for any of these other things. We should be putting everything into this, and it's possible.
We should be working with these governments, not fighting them. We should be like coming together as a planet and figuring out how to fix this problem, because it affects every single person on this planet.
Yeah.
And if you can't see that happening, you're just dumb or blind. I don't know. And it's happening everywhere. And you hear a story every day of another thing that's happening every day. Unprecedented this, unprecedented that. It's everywhere. And it's happening. It's snowballing. It's happening faster and faster and faster. It's faster than any of the science predicted it would happen.
Yeah. Well, let's hope enough people wake up and it gets done. And I hope. Let's hope.
Yeah.
That's all we've got.
Well, get the information out. That's all we can. I mean, get more people on board and get people screaming about it. And that's my goal, is to do that. So, and I know you've been a really great person as far as bringing that information out. I appreciate all the videos you do on the topic, and anyone else who does that. I really appreciate it. It's the light.
Well, guys, thanks for watching the show. Thank you, Chris, for joining and being a Patreon supporter. I'm going to put the links that Chris sent me all in the show notes. There's about 4 or 5 articles. I suggest reading them. It's great resources, and whatever you can do in your life, in your home, in your community to vote for, preserve, and change the environment for the better, do it. Thanks for watching, and check out Chris's show, The Natural Progressive, as well, because we're going to just keep pushing this information out there that the mainstream media is not, because the mainstream media is owned by the oil lobby, among others. So thank you so much, Chris, for being here today.
Thank you so much, Graham.